You wanna dance, you don't know how to get it on the floor, man. Don't hold back for anyone. Close your eyes, just follow the inner light. You count on me. You count on me.
Hi, I'm John Cullen. Welcome to another episode of Hypothetically Speaking. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at a story that just popped back into the news this weekend. It seems that Tulsi Gabbard has released a whole bunch of materials talking about how the United States has been funding biolabs, not just in the Ukraine, but all over the world. And it seems like that's a story that I covered, I guess, a little over 4 years ago. And it seemed like this would be a good time to re-examine the story of U.S. funding of biolabs around the world, hypothetically speaking. I'm John Cullen. Let's get started.
This morning with John Cullen. John Cullen, who came to my attention for his incredibly high-quality work unpacking the fiction and reality surrounding the massacre in Las Vegas. John Cullen.
And people have been sending me this video for the past 3 days. It's a Rumble video. There's 4 guys on the screen. One guy, the main guy talking, is wearing a black hat and sunglasses. You can imagine, and it's 2.5 hours long.
I heard about it.
Yeah, was the vax for something else? And on this video is Dr. Scott Jensen, Dave Cullen, and John Cullen, and then Tommy, it's his video channel.
I want you to consider that everything related to SARS-CoV-2, Wuhan, Peter Daszak, Dr. Shi, the Bat Lady, everything related to that virus is the red herring. That's Stephen Paddock. Has nothing to do with what Dr. Fauci and the United States intelligence apparatus is trying to cover up.
Well, it's better if you superimpose these.
Let's go to the next slide. Okay. And then go to the superimposed version.
Pretty similar. Okay.
Game, set, and match until somebody shows better data with a better fit. This is the difference between inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning. If you're not yet a patron, I really do need your support. Putting together material like this for years and years and years and not getting monetized by YouTube or TikTok or Twitter, X, Facebook. I don't get any money from any of those guys. So all the material that we've been publishing, I've been publishing for close to 9 years, is only monetized at patreon.com or subscribestar.com/I am John Cullen. That's it. That's the only way I'm able to support my family. So for those of you who are not yet supporting this journalism, please consider contributing $5 a month, which now turns out to be less than what I order at Starbucks, because I get a grande latte and it's now like $7. So if you guys can afford $5 a month, any of you that just got that new Audi e-tron, you can afford $5. Come on, join, become a patron, and you'll know about stuff years and years in advance. All right, let's take a look at this clip that Tulsi Gabbard published this weekend. It is June of 2026 right now, and Tulsi Gabbard has announced her resignation, and it is effective, I believe, June 30th. So as of July 1st, the new guy will be in there, and I think right now the president has asked Pulte, the guy who is the head of Fannie Mae, to take over this role. So let's listen to what Tulsi had to say first, and then we'll take it from there. Let's watch this together.
After months of searching through intelligence community holdings and files, today I'm releasing new evidence of longstanding U.S. government funding of more than 120 biolabs in over 30 countries. Now, these biolabs include labs in places like Ukraine, which could be at risk of compromise due to the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. In fact, the intelligence community had previously warned that a U.S.-funded biolab in Ukraine likely housed dangerous pathogens and remained vulnerable to longstanding threats of Russian attack, seizure, or damage. Now, until now, evidence regarding the full existence and funding of these laboratories had been knowingly withheld from you, the American people. Many of these U.S. government-funded biolabs are currently or have previously engaged in research using hazardous and highly contagious pathogens, and in some cases included dangerous gain-of-function research with very little visibility or oversight. Now, President Trump clearly understands the serious threat dangerous gain-of-function research poses to the American people. And this is why he took decisive action over a year ago. On May 25th, 2025, he signed an executive order to end federal funding of gain-of-function research around the world. Here at ODNI, I issued new guidance to the intelligence community directing increased collection on these laboratories and facilities overseas. And we're already seeing the results of this increased collection. We're learning new details, for example, on clinical trials that are underway at these facilities and that are raising significant ethical, financial, and security concerns regarding the supposed public health initiatives and U.S. national security. Now, despite the obvious potential for catastrophic global impact that research on dangerous pathogens in biolabs can have, politicians and so-called health professionals like Dr. Fauci, as well as entities within the Biden administration's national security team, lied repeatedly to the American people about the existence of U.S.-funded and supported biolabs. Not only did they lie, they threatened those who attempted to expose the truth. So this release today breaks new ground, as the information surrounding the existence, history, locations, and funding of these U.S.-funded biolabs has been intentionally covered up by very powerful people who falsely claimed that these biolabs didn't exist. Now, they accuse anyone who says otherwise to be foreign assets and traitors to America. Now, ODNI will continue working closely with partners across the U.S. government to identify exactly where these labs are and what pathogens they contain to end dangerous gain-of-function research that threatens the health and well-being of the American people and people around the world.
Wow. 120 labs around the world. I think we documented... what was it, 30 or 40, 36, 41, something like that. And those aren't codes for all of you numbers people. I'm just thinking, I'm trying to remember how many we found. But there were a lot. And the interesting thing was back then, in February of 2022, when the war between Russia and Ukraine first started, it was the day that we woke up to the news that Russia had invaded Ukraine. It was Friday, I guess it was the either 22nd or 25th. We'll see when this comes up in a second here. Friday the 25th of February in 2022. And that was the day that I went to the U.S. Embassy website in Ukraine. And this was first broadcast that evening, so that Friday evening. So Russia had just moved into Ukraine. I went there, did what I was doing, which you'll hear in a second, and we broadcast this that evening. And the broadcast did not go out on the Johnny Hoover channel. For some reason. Sometimes we had technical problems or whatever and synchronizing stuff. And so that particular show was not simulcast on the Johnny Hoover channel that evening. And so let me just play a little clip for you of this revelation. And by the way, it was like 20 minutes into the show. So the show was a whole bunch of other stuff and this. And this turned out to be kind of a big deal. So let me play this for you and we'll watch this together. Going to be exploring the Biological Threat Reduction Program. This is from the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine. Oh, what a great source of spooky documents. So if you want to find spooky documents, the first place you go, U.S. Embassy in Ukraine. So I went to the website, and lo and behold, a lot of the links take us to the sources which are in the Ukraine, but the Ukrainian internet is shut down. So all these links were coming. So they're all coming up dead. All the links are coming up dead. Click on Lviv research. Oh, you can't. Oh, because you're not there. All right. So I click on the links. They all come up dead. So I went to archive. I went to the time machine, archive.org. That was that evening. And I go to archive.org and I find these documents. And that was the evidence that kind of put the stake in the ground that the U.S. was in fact funding it. And the company that was sort of acting as an intermediary, sort of like the contractor, and then we would give them the money and then they would go do whatever it was that was in the contract, was a company called Black & Veatch. Veatch, I think. And we talked about that company. And then with the other thing that happened back then was Tulsi Gabbard, I guess, became aware of this content, and she kind of latched onto it and said, what the hell's going on here? And at the same time, a couple other people were paying attention to this as well. So Tulsi went on Tucker Carlson. I did another video about how many BSL-4 labs are there around the world. And that video, I think, is still on the channel, but it only has 2,000 views, right? Not many. So it's kind of weird. I've got over 80,000 subscribers, I think, on YouTube, and my videos get 2,000, 3,000 views. It's kind of odd. So I published a video 4 years ago about how many BSL-4 labs are there? Where are they? And so you guys can go and take a look at that video. The other thing that happened, I guess, was about a year later, Charles Ortel, who is an author of a pretty famous book about GE and how GE was kind of a house of cards. And he was kind of short. GE wasn't kind of buying into all their stuff, and sure enough, he turned out to be on the money. So Charles Ortel also saw this report about these documents, and he, on one of his podcasts, came forward and said, let's take a look at this. This was like a year later. I think it was maybe the anniversary of Russia going into Ukraine. So let's listen to what Charles Ortel had to say. This would have been February 2023 on the 1 year anniversary. Let's listen to this together.
Historic show on, I think it was February 25th, 2022, just as the invasion or the special military operation began. And I thought, let's go right to the source and let's debunk the debunkers and let's educate as many people as possible about what you said back then and answer any questions that the people may have about the quality of your data. Because I think and your findings, because they were important then. We've wasted a lot of time, money, and treasure around the world in this special military operation. Biden and his team refuse to entertain any reasonable discussion about why the Russians are mad, why they're doing what they're doing. And unless they do so, all we're looking at is death and destruction, first in Ukraine and probably across Europe and the wider world. So let's get back into what you told the world February 25th, 2022, and the documents that you can now share with us, and just really take it away. As you started this.
Anyway, I went to the U.S. Embassy's website, and when I got to the U.S. Embassy's website in Ukraine, so we have a U.S. Embassy in Ukraine, and I went to their website. And what I saw on the website, okay, this is interesting. There's this biological threat reduction program thing on the website at the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine. And I'm reading through what it says. And on the right-hand side are a bunch of links, a bunch of hyperlinks. But as I click on them, there's nothing there. And when I saw the pathogen asset control system, so the pathogen asset control system, pathogen asset management system, is the sort of thing, that's the type of application that we would have been asked to build when I was at Oracle, right? So if we had been working with companies that manage pathogens, that's the type of application you would build with Oracle. So we talked about how Tulsi was kind of on board with all this stuff. And again, Tulsi and I kind of sing from a similar hymnal, it seems. Like she was all on board with why is Obama blocking people from suing the Saudi government for September 11th? Well, why would you block that? So she came forward on that. And then she came forward on this. And she appears on Tucker Carlson talking about this issue. So let's watch this together and see if we can glean anything from what Tulsi said to Tucker 4 years ago. All right, let's watch this.
Thanks so much for coming on. So it's without even going into what they told us was Russian disinformation is actually true. How concerned are you that Torian Nuland, who's overseeing this war, has just admitted there are unsecure bioagents, dangerous bioagents in Ukraine?
What Tucker just said was Victoria Nuland admitted that there were biolabs in Ukraine. And Tucker brings this up to Tulsi. And if you don't know the backstory here, I published that, these findings on Friday the 25th. And I think this hearing you're about to see here with Marco Rubio, I think was that Monday. So I think it, 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th. I think so. So I could be wrong. But Marco Rubio starts putting the screws to Victoria Nuland. And this is literally just days later. So listen to this. Let's watch this together.
Well, I only have a minute left. Let me ask you, does Ukraine have chemical or biological weapons?
Ukraine has biological research facilities, which, in fact, we are now quite concerned Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of. So we are working with the Ukrainians on how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach.
I'm sure you're aware that the Russian propaganda groups are already putting out there all kinds of information about how they've uncovered a plot by the Ukrainians to release biological weapons in the country and with NATO's coordination. If there's a biological or chemical weapon incident or attack inside of Ukraine, is there any doubt in your mind that 100% it would be the Russians that would be behind it?
There is no doubt in my mind, Senator, and it is classic Russian technique to blame on the other guy what they're planning to do themselves.
But we never do that. We never blame the other guy for something that we did, like COVID. We never do that. All right. Let's continue listening to Tucker with Tulsi Gabbard.
I'm extremely concerned, as should be every American and everyone in the world. The seriousness of this situation really can't be overstated. First of all, she didn't say no when she was asked by Marco Rubio about there being biological or chemical weapons in Ukraine. So if there were or are, obviously that would be a violation of the Biological Weapons Convention. Number two, they're categorically been trying to hide this, as you've laid out very, very well. And then once they were found out, rather than saying, hey, you know what, this is a
For those of you who aren't familiar with Victoria Nuland, she not only kind of was in the midst of all this stuff with the Ukrainians, as she says, and the biolabs in Ukraine, and we're going to take a look at a couple videos that came from the embassy in just a moment. But Victoria Nuland, who you see on the screen right now, also had a very odd prediction 2 days before Donald Trump was shot in the head. All right, so somebody tried to shoot Donald Trump in the face, in the forehead, in the eye, in the nose, in the mouth. They missed and hit him and clipped his ear. And 2 days before that happened, Victoria Nuland had this to say, if you haven't seen this.
Elected, what will happen to Ukraine? Will he agree to give Putin his demanded territories?
Well, first of all, I don't believe Donald Trump will be elected by the American people. This man is a felon. He is a liar. He is not a supporter of basic U.S. democratic freedoms and principles. He's talking about locking up Americans, locking up immigrants, hurting our economy, et cetera. So I don't think that Donald Trump is going to be president. So if that's what Putin's betting on, he's going to get a unhappy surprise, I think. That is number one. Number two, were Trump to be elected and were he to force Ukraine...
An unhappy surprise. That's a little, I don't know, ominous foreboding or whatever from Victoria Nuland. So she's kind of creepy. Let's continue with Tucker Carlson and Tulsi Gabbard.
They're categorically been trying to hide this, as you've laid out very, very well. And then once they were found out, rather than saying, hey, you know what, this is a critical emergency, it's a crisis, we have these pathogens in the midst of a war zone, not just in one location, but between 20 and 30 labs in Ukraine. This is a global crisis. We're going to take action immediately. This is how a responsible leader would react given the crisis of this moment. But instead, what did they do? Her response to Senator Rubio was immediately start pointing fingers. We're going to preemptively start the blame game should anything happen to these pathogens and who knows what is going on in these labs. Before anything bad happens, just say, you know what, it's the bad guys. It's the bad guys who are responsible for this. It is the height of irresponsibility. Their response to this, the fact that they're covering it up, the fact that they aren't doing really what needs to be done, because unless this war in Ukraine ends right now, ends tonight, we face a very real certainty that one or more of these labs will be compromised, will be breached, and it won't just be the people of Ukraine who are impacted. We could face another global crisis when you look at a pathogen that could be released. We just went through this with COVID. We can't have forgotten this already.
And it turns out that was quite true. And these labs were breached by our people. Who the hell knows what was going on there, but the labs were definitely breached. I just republished a video earlier showing some footage from inside one of these bombed out labs. And I think the other thing is everything that you hear from the U.S. media and from the U.S. politicians is that if you hear anything coming from Russia, it's propaganda. And the truth is, it's usually everything that we hear from our media and our politicians is propaganda. Because as we know, they've covered up a ton of stuff just in the last 10 years. Right? So that's what we study here. So the question is, when you have somebody like a Sergei Lavrov, who's a really articulate guy, and he comes forward and says, what is the deal with the U.S. funding all these biolabs that are right over the border in Ukraine from Russia? And there's dozens of them. And so, in other words, we keep saying, oh, no, that's Russian propaganda. No, it's not. It's not Russian propaganda. And the fact that the media keeps brushing it under the rug as if it was just goes to show not how irresponsible they are, but worse. All right, so here's Sergei Lavrov talking about American investments in biolabs in Ukraine and how, this can't be okay. This would be like Russia investing in a whole bunch of Mexican biolabs in, Tijuana and whatever the cities are along the border. Yeah, with Texas, I don't know the names of the cities on the other side, but if Russia was putting biolabs in all those places, we'd probably get a little worked up, right? So and it's not just one story, right? This has been covered in the press, and he's talked about it in an interview. Let's watch this.
I'd like to take the discussion now to a sort of different topic.
The biggest lesson from this particular historic period is, unlike what we saw after 2014, that now, if there was any illusion that we can one day rely on our Western partners, this illusion is no longer there. We will have to rely only on ourselves and on our allies who would stay with us.
Several popular TikTokers in the United States.
Those laboratories have been created by the United States all over the world, more than 300 laboratories in various countries, many of them on the perimeter of the Russian Federation and the former Soviet republics, including Ukraine. Ukraine is probably the biggest project for the Pentagon, so we will be insisting on this issue to be picked up by the Biological Weapons Convention, but also by the Security Council, because it's a clear threat to international peace and security.
And this is something that Joe Biden just recently again said is not going to happen.
Any cargo moving into Ukrainian territory, which we would believe is carrying weapons, would be a fair game.
All right, so what he's saying here is this is like a huge violation of trust, guys. And who was behind it? Right? Who was behind this? Can't really blame this on Bill Clinton. That wasn't his thing. All the virus stuff, right? Remember when Barack Obama went to Ukraine? We've got photos of that, right? Investing in biolabs, and Obama's talking about how we need to invest all over the world to do this and do that and Sergei Lavrov is saying, how can we ever trust you guys? What the hell are you doing here? If you listen to what he says and you look at the data and you look at the evidence, you kind of wonder, what was Fauci thinking? All right, so that's Sergei Lavrov from Russia talking about the threat, talking about how, this is unacceptable. All right, this is, I think, the ambassador to the United Nations from Russia, or the spokesperson for Russia, something like that. So let's listen to what she has to say on this same topic.
Considering that we have the evidence that cannot be refuted, we demand that you provide details. The world must know what were you intending to do there, to what end, within which deadline, what was the amount of the so-called investments in the biological activities of Ukraine. Turning to the situation related to biological laboratories in Ukraine, we commented on this yesterday, and I would like to mention just the main points by the Russian MFA. We confirm facts that were found during the special military operation that confirm the Kiev regime attempted to cover up biological programs traces as implemented by Kiev and financed by the United States of America. There was no peaceful use whatsoever, no research use whatsoever intended for the good of peace. They were financed from the U.S. Ministry of Defense. The starting point of our position is that the U.S. Department of Defense and the U.S. President's administration should notify the international community in an official manner rather than through their speaking heads familiarize the international community with the programs carried out in Ukraine. We assume that the materials existing today, the confirmations that were made these days by the Ukrainian side and by the United States of America. There was a statement made by the Deputy Secretary of State, Victoria Nuland, leave no doubt, will not leave an opportunity for Washington to keep silence this time. We remember how many years and also their attempts while spilling blood to find biological and chemical weapons throughout the world, while in fact occupying, killing people. They were looking in the wrong place. We have found instead of you. We have found your own products. We have found your biological material. It was developed primarily for military purposes. As it turns out, it was all happening in Ukraine. What were you doing there? It's a different continent. It has no borders with you. There are no bases of yours. What were they doing there under the guise of scientific research? Your specialist, among others, on a regular basis, they were giving instructions to the Ukrainian side as to the purposes of their studies involved. Now,
all right, so you see, it's like a serious matter. And your media in America, our media, and our politicians say, no, that's just Russian propaganda. And Tulsi Gabbard just released all the documents that, no, it's not propaganda. No, we actually do it. Well, 4 years ago, I found the documents that showed us Black and Veatch, right? So we had that data over 4 years ago. And what we're going to look at now are the videos from the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine talking about this biologic asset control system and how complicated it is and hard for normal people to understand, which is classic, sociopath speak. So we're going to watch that together with my patrons because I've got to be able to pay the bills, guys. So for those of you who aren't yet patrons, please consider joining at patreon.com/I am John Cullen or subscribestar.com/I am John Cullen for $5 a month or more if you're doing well. And we'll be right back with the patrons. You guys know, we'll be back in 2 seconds. And we're going to watch some clips from the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine. We're going to listen to what these guys have to say. We've got a clip from China talking about U.S. labs, biolabs around the world, and what is the United States doing. We're going to watch all that together. We'll be right back. I'm John Cullen. Thanks for joining, Hypothetically Speaking.
Place an infrastructure, not just here at home, but globally, that allows us to see it quickly, isolate it quickly, respond to it quickly. So that if and when a new strain of flu, like the Spanish flu, crops up 5 years from now or a decade from now, we've made the investment. And we're further along to be able to catch it. The funding we're asking for is needed to keep strengthening our capacity here at home. It's needed to help us partner with other countries to prevent and deal with future outbreaks and threats before they become epidemics. We were lucky with H1N1 that it did not prove to be more deadly. There may and likely will come a time in which we have both an airborne disease that is deadly. And in order for us to deal with that effectively, we have to put in place an infrastructure, not just here at home, but globally, that allows us to see it quickly, isolate it quickly, respond to it quickly. So that if and when a new strain of flu, like the Spanish flu crops up 5 years from now or a decade from now, we've made the investment. And we're further along to be able to catch it. It is a smart investment for us to make. It's not just insurance, it is knowing that down the road we're going to continue to have problems like this.
You read about it from 1917. You read about 1917.
You know, the big one was 1917. I've read about the Spanish flu. That was 1907.
I think we would have had another 1917 Spanish flu. That's what I believe. We're close to 100 million people, they say, died. But while Joe Biden now wants credit for all of our successes, do you remember during the inauguration, he said he created the vaccine? I said, no, Joe, we gave you the vaccine on December 11th. Remember, we put it into your arm to keep you safe, Joe.
Standing tight on your feet, light is here, just like me. You wanna dance, I wanna lead, the sleight of the hand that you never seen. You wanna dance, you don't know how to get it on the floor, man. Don't hold back for anyone. Close your eyes, just follow the inner light. You count on me. You count on me. I can fly, I can breathe, learn to sing like do-re-mi. So you wanna dance, and you wanna be the bat out of hell. Follow my lead. You wanna dance.